Anybody ready? Everybody ready to roll? Anybody have any questions before we get started in the meeting? All right, let me just start off with making a very short statement. January of 2013, the Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Department arrested 3 individuals, Brian Diamond, Stephen Ellis, and Calcasieu Connolly, resulting from an incident that took place on New Year's Eve in the Moss Bluff area. That incident resulted in the death of a Moss Bluff man. Subsequent to his investigation, the Sheriff's Department charged those individuals with manslaughter and turned the case over to the Calcasieu Parish District Attorney's Office for prosecution. This office has brought this matter to a Calcasieu Parish grand jury on 2 separate occasions. We were not able to obtain an indictment, not even close to obtaining an indictment from a grand jury. Therefore, at this time, unless and until we obtain additional evidence, we will consider this matter to be resolved for the moment. As most of you know, we can prosecute a case like this for a period of 6 years. In order for us to reinitiate any prosecution, we will have to have additional evidence to make that happen. And we'll take any questions that the sheriff may want to say something about this.
No, I think it's unfortunate. Excuse me. I think it's unfortunate that this even happened, and I probably said it in a previous interview that sometimes things get out of hand, and it's unfortunate. But this is our system, and it's the best system in the world. And the grand jury felt like that this was not indictable, and at this time, and we're okay with that. We'll unless new evidence comes forward, as the district attorney said, then we'll also consider this matter closed for us.
Questions?
Does that mean that charges are dropped against all 3 men?
That's correct.
And then, they bonded out, correct, back then. So does that money return to them, or how does that work?
Any circumstances of bond will be reversed, and they will be able to recover any funds they put up if they put up any cash bond.
At the time, it was said that the beating took place after Crochet had alleged sexual conduct with a juvenile. Is that correct? And do you believe that factored into the inability to get a grand jury to indict him?
There were issues involved in this case that precipitated the conduct of all of the parties involved. There have been several publications in the form of printed media and television coverage of that. I have discussed with, and Mr. David Kimball from my office has discussed with both families, both sides of the families in this event. We're not going to go into any more details other than to say some of the actions here were precipitated by actions of the victim, and certainly the grand jury was aware of whatever those may have been.
Was the grand jury given any other instructions on any other charges other than manslaughter when trying to indict, or when given instruction on reaching an indictment?
The grand jury had the option to return an indictment for anything from second-degree murder down to aggravated battery.
I guess maybe this is a question for Sheriff Mancuso or even you, Mr. DeRosier, but what would you say to these 3 men in light of this? I mean, you talked about this being the process of the justice system, and this is the way that the process worked, but seeing that this man is dead and that there were these altercations, and unfortunately there wasn't an indictment to come back, but what would you say, either one of you guys, to these 3 men in regard to this matter?
Well, as the sheriff said earlier, this is certainly an unfortunate event for everybody involved. I certainly do not condone the actions of the defendants in this case, but this is our system, and the grand jury system is a fair and appropriate system. And if a grand jury chooses to find or refuses to find that there is probable cause to move forward to trial, the grand jury has spoken. And as I indicated, that will be the end of it unless and until we find new evidence.
And the only thing I can add to that is if if a person feels like somebody has done something to them, we have a system for that, and they report that instead of taking matters into their own hands. You know, and I would urge people that that's what they should do. They should trust in the system. Doesn't work perfectly all the time, but it works. And I would ask that people trust in that system. It's the greatest system in the world. It doesn't say it's not without flaws, but it is the greatest system in the world.
Have you spoken with the Crochet family? Are they content with this?
Representatives from office have spoken with all the families.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about how that went?
I think it went well. It's certainly difficult to accept for everybody involved in this. This has been a very difficult event for all the families involved, particularly the family of the victim. And we certainly sympathize with the family for the loss they've had. As we both indicated before, that's the system, that's the way it works.
Are you guys content with the conclusion of this?
I am content that the system has functioned the way the system is supposed to function. Does not necessarily mean I agree or disagree with the ultimate outcome. We have that every day at the courthouse where we sometimes agree, sometimes disagree with the end result. We always agree with the system.
And I would say unless some new evidence comes up that has not been given to the district attorney that somebody can supply us with, then yes, I'm content.
Can you just talk a little bit about the grand jury system as far as, you know, in a case like this, is there like a set number of times that you would bring it before a grand jury before letting it go, or?
Generally, cases are brought before a grand jury one time, and a grand jury makes a determination. They can do one of three things. One, a grand jury can return a true bill, which we refer to as an indictment. The grand jury can, on the opposite end, return what we call a no true bill, saying that 9 members of a grand jury have agreed not to indict. The grand jury has a third option, and that is the option to pretermit, where they cannot reach a decision. And that is what happened in this case, so we brought it back to the grand jury with a larger list of potential charges, and the grand jury would not indict on any of the charges, any of the defendants. So in a grand jury situation, you have to have at least nine grand jurors to have a quorum, and you have to have at least 9 grand jurors to reach a conclusion, whether it be a true bill or no true bill. So to reach a true bill of indictment, 9 grand jurors have to say there is probable cause to go forward with a criminal charge, which they did not do in this case.
Is that rare for them to not make a decision?
I would not say it's something that is very common. I wouldn't say it's rare, but it does happen from time to time.
Do you know, I don't know if you can talk with the grand jury about this, but what were some of the difficulties in reaching an indictment? Were there just evidence issues, or?
I'm not going to discuss what took place in the grand jury, but I do know some things outside of the grand jury. One of the issues we have in this case was medical causation. There were, as most of you know, there were 2 separate events that took place. And of course, the coroner had to make a decision as to which event caused the fatality. And I think the coroner had some significant difficulty with a positive determination as to whether the fatal injuries were from the first event or the second event.
And can you say who was involved in the 2 events?
I think Mr. Diamond was involved in the first, and the other 2 defendants were involved in the second.
So just moving forward, just for clarity, I mean, this is kind of, charges are dropped, you guys move on unless any other evidence comes up that tells you otherwise. Is that correct?
That's correct. If we do not get additional evidence, new information we don't have already, this matter will not move forward.
And that 6 years, that's from the date of the offense or
That's
incident?
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, guys.